The world was ending, and he could do nothing to stop it. The commander stood atop the broken ramparts of the city's last fortress, its once proud spires reduced to twisted iron and blackened stone. Beyond the walls, the night boiled with shapes that should not exist. Things that skittered and screamed, that tore flesh with too many limbs, that shattered armored columns with brute, mindless fury. The land itself seemed to recoil beneath their advance, a dark tide of hunger that no blade, no cannon, no wall had yet repelled. Below him, the outer defenses crumbled. The eastern barricades, once bristling with turrets and mortars, had been overrun hours ago. The artillery platforms on the western ridge lay silent, their crews ripped apart, their barrels twisted into useless sculptures by the invaders' strength. Fire belched from the skeletal remains of habitats, painting the smoke thick sky in a sickly orange hue. Entire districts were flattened, their ruins swarming with the nightmare creatures as they feasted on the fallen. He tasted blood and ash in the air. Around him, his soldiers fought and died without hope. Some fired wildly into the night, others simply dropped their weapons and stared as the beast closed in. He watched a squad of young conscripts make a final charge, bayonets lowered, screams torn from raw throats only to be swallowed whole by a creature of writhing limbs and gnashing maws. He saw veterans, grim and unflinching, dragged down beneath the weight of bodies, their weapons falling silent one by one. The warcast filled his helm with a static chorus of broken screams, final orders, prayers half-formed. Sector commanders reported their positions breached, their lines shattered. Medical stations begged for evacuation that would never come. Civilian shelters broadcast desperate calls before they too fell silent, one after another, swallowed in the tide. It would not be enough. It had never been enough. The enemy amassed at the gates. The commander knelt among the rubble, his armor tattered from a dozen wounds. His hands, once steady, now trembled. He knew in some deep and aching part of him that none would survive this night. No help was coming. The Everlord had not answered the 1,000 prayers uttered by better men before him. Still, he bowed his head. Beneath the shattered sky, he spoke, words only the void could hear. O Everlord, who reigns beyond the veil, grant us deliverance from this devouring scourge. Grant us this world's salvation. He pressed his forehead against the cracked stone, the ancient sigil of the sovereign etched faintly into its surface. He whispered, in return, the first soul who greets me on the morrow shall be yours. The prayer hung thin and bitter in the air. The commander waited. The beasts shrieked as they breached the outer courtyard. He could hear the wet crunch of bodies torn apart, the metallic grind of turrets falling silent. He could feel the tremors as heavy gates buckled inward, as the final barricades were pulled down like paper. Then a sound split the heavens, not the wail of monsters. A rumble deep and resonant shook the ground beneath his knees. The clouds, stained red with firelight, tore open. From the blackness beyond the stars, shapes emerged. Battleships. They dropped through the upper atmosphere like falling suns, and from them came burning pods, streaking down, hammering into the killing fields outside the walls. The Ashen Guard had come. In perfect silence they advanced, towering figures clad in armor the color of a dying forge, wielding weapons that sang death across the battlefield. Where the beasts surged forward, the Guard shattered them. Bolts of searing light cleaved through impossible flesh. The ground itself shuddered under the disciplined fury of their march. In minutes the tide turned. The monsters, so relentless, began to break. Some fled, chittering into the ruins. Others burned where they stood, reduced to ash under the relentless advance. The fortress's defenders, or what remained of them, collapsed to their knees. Some wept. Others simply stared in mute disbelief. The commander rose slowly, limbs stiff with exhaustion and awe. His world was saved. Not by their own strength. By his prayer. The ash and smoke drifted like morning veils across the battlefield. Fires guttered in the ruins. The cries of the wounded echoed into a sky no longer split by alien roars. He stood alone now, the last bearer of command. His armor servos whined as he moved toward the breached gates, watching the Ashen Guard assemble in perfect ranks beyond the perimeter. Their banners, black and silver, snapped in the rising wind. One figure detached from their formation and approached. Its steps made no sound on the broken stone. In its hands it carried a staff crowned with a broken circle, the ancient symbol of oaths fulfilled. The commander straightened as best he could. His breath caught in his throat. He took a few steps forward, past the shattered threshold of the gates. Ash crunched underfoot, and there, from the rubble of the inner courtyard, a figure emerged, small, unarmored, light-footed. He knew her in an instant. She wore a battered cloak over simple vestments, the sigil of the sovereign barely visible against the soot. Her hair was braided back the way it had been when she was still a child. Her face, dirt smeared and pale, broke into a disbelieving smile at the sight of him. She ran toward him, arms outstretched. The commander did not move. Something inside him cracked as she crossed the distance between them. She called his name, the name he had nearly forgotten in the long years of war. She stumbled to a halt before him, laughing and crying at once. He looked down at her, armor still slick with ash and gore, and felt the hollow echo of the vow still resonating in the marrow of his bones. He had asked. He had been heard. The emissary's shadow fell across them. The commander raised his head slowly. The emissary stopped before him. The war cast crackled to life in his helm, not with screams this time, but a single voice, cold and patient as the grave. Your prayer was heard across the warcast. The figure tilted its head slightly, as if studying him. Then silence. Endless, final silence.